Now let's have some tea.
Or wine.
Cheers. Salud. So today's episode, our Tuesday tea topic is self-confidence and...
What's the other word?
I thought you were going to remember. I was like, girl, self-confidence and self-esteem.
Esteem. Okay.
So, I feel like this is such a big topic for conversation nowadays, more so than ever. I feel like so many more people nowadays struggle with like self-confidence and self-esteem. And I think we can all realize that it comes down to one thing, which is social media, right? That's probably like a huge part of why.
Nowadays, definitely. But I think for us growing up, it was different because we didn't have all this
Thank God.
social media to compare yourself to.
Yeah, we were like really in real life living in the moment,
Yes.
you know? And I feel like at least speaking for myself, any insecurities or first of all, I think we all go through insecurities. Maybe there's things that you were insecure about that you've overcome, that you're no longer insecure about. But I feel like for our generation, or at least like speaking for myself, that stems a lot from like childhood and growing up and not having like a proper foundation of like support or like building the self-confidence in your child. And so although I know they say nowadays like, oh, you're raising snowflakes, like you give everyone a trophy and you do this and you do that. And I do agree in the sense that I don't think everyone deserves a trophy if you didn't win.
It takes away from the person that worked so hard to get the trophy.
Exactly, yeah. But I think that building, like the way that we are so like, we want to build our children up nowadays. We make sure to acknowledge the things that we love about them. Like I love that we do that nowadays. Like that's something and maybe families did do that growing up. It just wasn't in my family.
For me, it was a little different with the whole self-confidence. In my family structure, it was there. Also being a woman, a girl, you pick yourself apart. No matter how much praise you get, for me, it just wasn't enough because it's your family. You're like, oh, they have to say that to you. They have to talk to you like that because they're your family. But that's not true because not everybody gets that from their family. So for me, I was the first girl. Like my grandmother had 3 girls and then she had 5 boys, and then I was the first grandgirl, the granddaughter firstborn.
Grandgirl.
Grandgirl.
I was too.
So everyone was like, and then the fact that I was born with a different color eyes from everybody else, it was like a big thing growing up. So you would think that hearing that and being like, oh, you know, your family always telling you how beautiful you are, that you would think that, and you don't. You don't at all. You still look at other people because your description of beauty is different with everybody. So you would still see other people that you felt that were prettier than you, and you would still have self-esteem and confidence issues, especially when then you go through your awkward stage. I had frizzy hair.
I think we all did. Looking at teens now and the way we were, it was like,
I had because I had astigmatism in my left eye. I had big bifocal glasses. It was like a big, huge transition that you go through, and then you still have to live your life. You still have to go to school.
Yeah. That's one thing that I do admire about now. Like we were so afraid, like you said, like with the glasses. I remember I had to start wearing glasses to see the chalkboard when I was like 14, and I wouldn't wear them. I wouldn't wear them in school because I was embarrassed, or I didn't want to be made fun of or anything like that. Or I didn't even want to get braces back then because I didn't want to have to wear braces. And I'm like, and now it's so... the kids like it, like they want that stuff. So I do love that aspect that they've come around to appreciate those things and realize it's a normal part of growing up. It's a normal part of changing from a child into a young adult.
And the kids do nowadays. They love the glasses that, because you know what, there's so many more options.
Yeah.
I love my glasses
We
now.
didn't have many options growing up.
And then the eye doctor that I went to, there was like, for your age, there was like this certain section and you couldn't veer from the section. You had to pick from that section and that section only, and they looked the same. All the glasses looked the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so walking around with these big bifocal glasses and frizzy hair and still try to be like confident and be present, it wasn't easy at all.
Yeah, for me too. If anything, it was very confusing for me growing up because I was praised for being so skinny in my family. I remember my maternal grandmother, she would always praise me for being like really skinny. Then going to school, I did get bullied and picked on for being so skinny. So it was just really confusing to me. And, you know, now looking back and being older, I'm so great. I look, you know, I don't know if you feel like this, but so many times I think back and I think like raising children or nieces and nephews that we have in our lives, you naturally reflect back to when you were a child, and so badly you just want to hug your younger self, because I'm like, man, I really like, you know, I was such a cute kid, or I was a good kid, or like, I'm so proud of that little girl and who she was. I wish she knew what I know now. Like, right. It's just like, I don't know, but I think that all starts in the home. It starts with the way you raise the child, you know, your children and stuff like that. And, I think growing up, it was hard, but I don't think we had it as hard as people do now, like teenagers or kids growing up. Because now with social media, that's one thing I think I wanted to talk about in this episode, is saying, I just posted something on this today, because, you know, we're always putting so much, and I know we talk about this a lot, but just to share more of like actual reality, because we're always putting our best selves forward, right? We should talk more about the reality of feelings or what people go through, or it's okay to feel down on yourself some days. It's just not okay to stay in those places. You know, there's been losses around us that have kind of like brought me back to like, I don't want to say like a dark place, because that makes it sound like so bad, but a place of like sadness speaking for myself, just sadness. And then also to where almost like recognizing like, I don't feel like me. I just didn't feel like myself. And I kind of just had to take some time to really just like let myself go through those emotions. And it just took me really staying in bed, watching movies, secluding myself, which I know is not always the best thing, but I really needed just a day of that to just kind of like hibernate and recognize the feelings, and then say, okay, you know, yesterday, it's a new day. I'm going to pick myself up and deal with my emotions. For me, speaking for myself, I also know that if those feelings linger, I also know to always like talk to someone, like a professional, you know, not to really get stuck in those places. But it happens. And I just really want to raise more awareness about that. And
then sometimes you just, when that you're going through that, you don't feel like yourself. And then to be going through those feelings and those emotions, especially for the children and the young adults nowadays, to then go on social media, and then you see these people living their supposedly best lives and with everything that you wish or wanted because of what you're going through at that moment. So that puts a downer on how you're feeling and the way that you look at yourself, and even the way you look at your life. So like we were saying before, I wouldn't trade it for the world to be the children nowadays with all this social media compared to what we had. We didn't have any of this. So it wasn't broadcasted, you know, so we had to deal with it, you know, together with family or on your own. But these kids sometimes don't even do that, like let people in on what they're going through. And it's hard because a lot of these times when you're on social media, it's not even real. Like nothing is real.
It's literally seconds or photos, like even us, like pictures and things or videos that we take. Yeah, it could be maybe from last week, but it's not like that very moment that we're living. Like we're posting something that we already took before because, you know, editing or the right moment to put something up. And that's another thing with all the like filters and edits and things like that. Like, and I know you could say, oh, well, I didn't filter my picture, I didn't edit it. Yeah, but you curated what you wrote on it, right? You curated when you put it up. So in a sense, everything's being edited as you put it online, no matter what you do, you know? So it's just like, those are things to definitely keep in mind. Kind of like just, okay, go through it.
Disconnect
and then,
from everything.
Yeah. And I feel like we all need that too. It's hard, but we need it.
And then there's other times where we would look back at pictures of us from when we, you know, just being younger and being out and enjoying life. And we have pictures of us where we hardly have any makeup on. We hardly have eyebrows. We're still smiling, and we feel confident.
And we look beautiful too. Like there was one picture we were looking at recently because we want to like recreate the photo, and I was like, man, look at us! Like we were like these cute little things with those tiny little jeans that you'd wear, those low rise. And then she's pointed out, she's like, look at us. She's like, I don't even think we had makeup on in there. Maybe some lip gloss. And I look at it, I'm like, girl, we didn't even have eyebrows.
No,
but
nothing.
We were living we had the best
And you can
time.
tell the picture was genuine. Like we were smiling. Like the glow, you can just see it on our faces that we were enjoying ourselves. It wasn't fake. And nowadays the girls, with everything so contoured staged. and their hair a perfect way, we just lived life. We didn't overthink it. We just enjoyed it, and we just feel so bad for the generation now. Like you're constantly trying to look better than the next person.
Even us, right? Like being older, I think one time we had talked about this and touched on it too, where I was saying like, we second guess so much more now than we ever did. And I'm like, is it because we're older? So obviously, you know, like certain things you're going to second guess because you're older, you make wiser choices. Like back then it was kind of like, okay, like we didn't really think about consequences as much as you would as you get older. So I'm like, is it that, or is it because we are already falling into that trap of like comparing yourself to someone else or to others? Like even like I know like for me with like schooling or achieving the goals that I want now, you know, I feel like I'm doing this so late in life where I you know, many other people do this in their 20s, but I'm like, it's my story. At the end of the day, years from now, after I'm long gone, who's going to remember my story other than like my children, who are the ones that matter, and the people that I really loved and cared for? I mean, I would hope that we leave some kind of impact in this life, or even if it is on one person. But at the end of the day, it's like, what really matters? Does it matter that we led our lives truthfully, true to who we are, and like to make ourselves happy, obviously not hurting anyone else? Or is it like to look good to everyone else? Because that's not how I want to live. You know, I've never been like that. So it's like, why do that now that I'm in my 40s? Like, that's the last thing I want to do.
And that's another thing where the comparison comes in. Everybody has their own timing. There's no such thing as a timeline on where you should be in your life, or what you should be doing, or what you should have achieved. It's everyone's timing is different, and that's where it comes with us when it comes to you know, faith and believing in God. It's on His timing. It's not on your timing, and that's where I feel people also make themselves depressed, is when you're looking at other people's timing. That's not your story. That's their story. You just have to be happy for them, because your timing and your story is going to be fulfilled. You'll eventually get there.
Yeah, that's why I even want to do an episode at some point. I'll be back in school soon, but I wanted to do an episode on you know, advantages and disadvantages of going to college later in life. Are there advantages? Are there disadvantages? I'm sure there's both, but I wanted to share that because, yeah, a lot of people do go to college when they're 18, as you're quote unquote supposed to. But at 18, what do you really know about yourself? And hey, if you know, you've done a great career with, you know, and something that you've always been so passionate about and it worked out, which it does for many, but it's okay for someone to work in a field for 10, 15 plus years and then realize this is not for me. People are allowed to change their minds and recreate their life entirely. Who's to say that's wrong? Like, I feel like we should ultimately live and be happy, you know?
And I think when it comes to like confidence, the way to build it, it depends on who's in your circle, like who's around you, who you decide to keep around you. Sometimes there's certain people that, as you get older, you'll realize that they don't need to be around you because they're not adding to you, they're not pouring into you. So that's another thing that takes away from your happiness and your confidence. So once you start alleviating those downers from your life, you'll start to feel better, and you'll start to, feel more confident about yourself. And once you start, and that's another thing as women, loving yourself. As once you start realizing your value and start loving yourself, then you also build, more confidence.
Yeah. And that's another thing. You can't really love anyone else until you really do love yourself, and that's so important. And I really think that that's such a big one that she just pointed out as far as confidence goes, is your circle. I feel like when we don't love ourselves, we start to pick people that don't love, right? Because we don't know how to pick people that truly love us. So you start to pick people that don't help you feel that confidence that you feel. When you have the right people, they lift you up. They point out the things that they love about you, or the things that they admire about you, right? And you start to see those things, which is one thing that we've talked about in I think it was our manifestation video, is the affirmations. Start telling yourself the things that you do love about yourself, because surely there are things that you like about yourself. So talk about those things, focus on those things, and you'll start to see that you start to focus on the positive in yourself more rather than the negative. And if there are things that you have to work on in yourself, then think about how you can work on those things, but it shouldn't take away from your self-confidence. And you have to be very careful with the people you surround yourself with, because it's very easy to not realize it, and it can affect you. And then by the time that you realize someone around you is not good for you, it could be too late. You just don't want it to have that.
Also, your confidence and your self-esteem also is the relationships that you decide to put yourself in. Could also be a big reason why your self-confidence is damaged. So that's another, just a part of your circle, is the people that you decide to let into your life and having a relationship with.
Yeah, and I feel like too, we have to remember self-confidence and self-esteem isn't all physical, right? There's so many more aspects to it. I know for me, a big one was emotional maturity. That was a big thing that played into my confidence. I noticed that once I really started having more emotional maturity and more control over my emotions, and realizing that was a big issue for me because I didn't have emotional stability. I feel like growing up really from my parents, that was a big thing that once I started working on, you naturally become more confident in yourself. So it's not just a physical aspect, although obviously physical plays a big part in it, because when you go on social media, all that is visual. So you're seeing, you're comparing.
That's what I was gonna say. So everybody's beautiful. So for the fact that I understand if you have a pimple that day and you want to remove the pimple, that's fine. But when you overly filter,
when you're giving yourself a nose job on social media, it was funny. I said that when Zolma and I went out to eat, we were talking about social media that came up or whatever. I was like, girl, these social media, these Instagram filters, they be making me want a nose job. I never wanted a nose job ever in my life. I was never, and that is one thing, I'm not gonna lie, from doing that, I'm like, wow, I'm like, oh my gosh, my face. Yeah. So it is, I feel like it is so detrimental to our mental health, I feel like.
But she is right with just talk to yourself, tell yourself that you are beautiful, you are worth it, and it will build your self-esteem and make you realize that you were made the way you were made for a reason.
Yeah. Each day, try to find something new that you love about yourself, whether it's physical, whether it's whatever it is. But each morning you wake up, try to find one thing and say, you know what, I love this about myself, or, and watch how you start to build yourself up, and I can only hope too that on social media, whether it's all influencers, YouTube, TikTok, all these, I hope that starts becoming more of a thing, because I know we've talked about this ever since the beginning of our episodes, is trying to be more real and raw with our podcasts and our videos. We want to bring people up. We don't want to make people feel worse about themselves. So I know that's one goal that we've always said that we wanted to bring to this channel.
Yeah, I agree. Just be open, and if you have children, just be transparent. And talk to your children. And, especially, they all go through it. It's not just a girl thing.
Yes, that's another thing. Yeah, that's another thing we didn't touch on, which we probably should have, because boys and men go through it just as much sometimes. And I hate to say this because I know we go through it pretty bad, but I feel like sometimes men even worse, because I feel like women are becoming more open with it, and men, it takes a little longer for them
and not just that they're taught and they're trained not to be so feminine, so they kind of like hide it or brush it underneath the table. So a lot of the times we don't know what they're going through because of the way that society says they should be.
Yeah, which that's unfair too. So hopefully with all of this, people will talk about things more, be more expressive about it, be more real, raw, honest, not, I mean, of course we all like to see beautiful things put on social media, but if we can talk about the reality of it all more, I think then, that would make a difference. Especially we want a healthy younger generation growing up, right? Where we always talk about breaking all these generational curses so that they don't have to go through the emotional trauma or damage that we did. But I feel like they won't go through what we did, but it'll be different, different emotional. So if we can minimize that in any way, I think that's something. So make sure you build your kids up, you give them that confidence.
And if you're being confident in yourself and they see that, you're an example, so that they know what to do and how to be a reflection of you.
Yeah. Like when you talk in front of your kids about staying fit and healthy, don't make it about losing weight or gaining. Make it more about like, I'm doing this to stay healthy. I'm doing this because I want to live a long, good life, and I think that's a better mindset for the younger generation rather than staying like this to look pretty, because like you said before, everyone's definition or like their perception of what's beautiful is different. So you could think someone super skinny is beautiful, or someone that, to someone else that might not be as appealing. They might be like, no, I like, so everyone likes something different. You're never going to appeal to every person,
and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah, so you have to be comfortable in your own skin for yourself. No one else but yourself.
Exactly. And it does take a long time to learn that, but you will definitely figure it out and learn it as long as you want to, as long as you're trying, and as like we said before, as long as you realize the people around you.
Yeah. Good circle helps bring you up, lift you up, and realize your worth.
Exactly.
So always surround yourself with good people.
Well, guys.
So on that note, I think we'll close out this episode. We just wanted to do an episode today on that. I feel like it's just something that is important and should be talked about. So don't forget to subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And also, I think we talked about it on our last episode about our manifest stack. So those should be coming out soon. Keep an eye out on our social media. Yeah, but if you have any requests, always feel free to send us messages on Instagram or even emails. I do link the email in the description down below on our videos. But cheers, guys. Till next time.
Cheers.
Love, light, peace, V, and C.